I think even just looking around the audience, I can see almost a type that is generally active and usually comes along with a view to having an active lifestyle and informing yourselves and so on. So I congratulate you for that. And thank you for coming along, and thank you for the introduction, Fergal. As an orthopedic surgeon, in terms of injury prevention and that, very often by the time you're sitting or standing or lying in front of us, the damage has already been done. But we hope that while the damage was being done, you were having a good time. So the question here is, active lifestyles, helpful or harmful? Now, I think we would all immediately say helpful. I think some people would think that the orthopedic surgeons, who sometimes have to pick up the pieces, might have a different view, but I hope that by the end of this talk, you will realize that that is not the case. So there are two areas where you may come to an orthopedic surgeon, and obviously the first one is related to sports injuries, an acute injury, and the second area is with regard to whether you will suffer a wear and tear or overuse injury. So let us start with the high-impact sports. So high-impact sports can lead to high-impact injury, and it is as simple as that. If you are playing these contact sports, you will sustain a contact injury, and it's high velocity. Energy is half the mass by the volume squared, velocity squared. So people who are running very fast and impacting on each other can injure each other, and it is as simple as that. This is a Colles fracture, actually, as it happens, from falling on an outstretched hand. These people clearly are all prone to high impact, high velocity, high energy transmission type injuries. And they can range from something as simple as a broken collarbone, which may require plating and fixing, to the much more serious type of situation where you've got a cervical spine injury. And these are the vertebrae of the cervical spine. This is the person's jaw, but you can see all the vertebrae are lined up on top of each other, but here there is that step. And so when you see that on an MRI scan, you can see this sort of situation where the spinal cord can be damaged. And these, in a way, are the really catastrophic, disastrous, terrible injuries related to sports that come to orthopedic surgeons and require fixation. But much more commonly, it is the injuries such as clavicle fractures, or for example, these type of knee injuries, which is an area that I deal with. Okay, so anterior cruciate ligament injury. So this, I think you would agree, would be defined as a contact anterior cruciate ligament injury. But much more commonly, anterior cruciate ligament injuries are non-contact. So here it is, a sudden change of direction. Planted foot and the body twists and the cruciate ligament snaps. And in fact, the goalkeeper with the Irish team during the last friendly had that injury from a planted foot and changing direction. And it happens in non-contact sports. It happens in golfers, for example. Tiger Woods had an anterior cruciate ligament injury. And this is what it is. It's a large ligament in the middle of the knee joint that gives stability. There's another view of it. In the knee joint, there's also these things called menisci. And the reason I'm just focusing a little bit on the knee is partly because I look after this area a lot, but also because it refers to some of the research that we're doing that I hope you will find interesting. So meniscal injuries, they're what they are. When people say, oh, this player tore his cartilage, somebody tore their cartilage, it can be this little shock absorber type cartilage between the bones that as you weight bear and twist on it, you can cause a little tear in the meniscus. And then we do this arthroscopic surgery. This is the knee, this is the scope going into the knee, and this is what we see on the screen. So a little tear in the meniscus. There's a diagrammatic version of it. So you see that the cartilage tissue is torn. And then when we put in the scope, we can either repair that occasionally, although the tissue is not very good at healing even after you repair it, or we can just remove the torn fragment. And essentially it's a little bit like torn fingernail tissue, that you're removing it because it is very uncomfortable and causes a lot of pain. Sometimes you can have meniscal injuries and ligament injuries. I have to say no orthopedic talk is complete without some of these pictures. So I apologize for that. Or you can break the bone. So these are all the things that can happen in these type of high velocity injuries or high impact, high energy, twisting and changing directions. The other area that I want to just talk briefly about is that this is the cartilage on the end of the bone, and you'll be familiar with this smooth, shiny cartilage that you can see, smooth like glass, and the two surfaces in a normal joint, there's less friction between those two surfaces than there is between two ice cubes. So you can imagine how unbelievably efficient this material is, the articular cartilage or the surface cartilage. But what can happen is people can damage the surface of that. So this tiny little divot out of that area can have a massive impact. And there's an MRI scan, and you can see the little dark shaded area where the cartilage has been damaged. So this is another type of injury that can occur. And it, unlike a meniscus injury or a cruciate ligament injury, which by and large can be treated surgically, these can be a huge problem because although they're a very small area, they can remove somebody's ability to play sports or to be active. So I'll come back to that injury in a little while. The next type of sports, and this is I suppose what more people are involved with, and I call them endurance sports, but that includes people going for a long hill walk or a run or a long cycle or something like that. And this is more what the recreational sports person will be doing. So you've got the two opposite ends of the orthopedic spectrum. So you've got the young person, the young sportsman here, but you've also got the older person who likes to maintain an active lifestyle. So the greying population, and this is where I suppose in the 20 years since I have come back and been in practice, when I was working in the States in the 90s, I used to be surprised when people would come in their 70s and say that they wanted something done because they wanted to go skiing and they wanted to take up sports like that. But then over the last 20 years, which is great, we've seen that people, as they get older, they want that more active lifestyle. So they want to take up skiing when they're in their 60s. When they take early retirement, they have this third act, they have all these different things that are going on that they want to do more. So they are slightly at increased risk of degenerative disease, but they want to stay active longer and they will not accept lifestyle limitations, which is good. And the role of movement and exercise in the management of all of these medical conditions has been proven. So while we're orthopedic surgeons putting in knee replacements and hip replacements, of course we're treating pain, but by allowing people to be active, we are helping them to treat and prevent these conditions. So it's really important. So, but obviously people who are putting their joints under a lot of extra stress and strain can bring on different problems. And so with the knee, I suppose then what people ask about is arthritis of the knee. Okay, it's extremely common. There's primary, which occurs as people get a little older. It can be associated and linked with increased activity. But likewise, you can have somebody who has worked in a sedentary job all their lives, never really did any activities, and they can develop arthritis as well. And essentially what's happening is that articular surface that we were talking about is becoming worn. And this is what it looks like, essentially. Instead of the smooth, glassy surface, you've got this loss of articular cartilage. And then the bone underneath it is exposed, and therefore it's a little bit more painful. And this is what patients will complain of: pain and stiffness, difficulty moving around. And then when you examine them, they may have swelling and a limp, and they'll all have pain. And so this is the x-ray that shows the difference. So this is a normal knee, this is the femur, there's the patella. So you can see a nice space between the joint, between the two bones, and that's the articular cartilage. If we look over on this side, I don't think you need too much imagination to see that the cartilage is fully worn away, and in fact, they get these little the thing called osteophytes around the edge, and it's nature's response to try and reduce the movement in the knee joint. So you can understand why if somebody wants to go and exercise, go for a walk, go dancing, go hill walking, go for a weekend city break, go running, go cycling, whatever it is, this is a problem. And so therefore, if they become more sedentary, they get all of those other medical problems. So we try all of these things: weight reduction, physio, modifying activities, although exercising within the limits of pain should be encouraged, because you would imagine that telling somebody whose cartilage is a little bit damaged, you would think that you should tell them to rest it, but in fact this is not the right thing. So somebody should exercise within the limits that they can, even though they have damage to their cartilage. It is good for them. Medical treatment, pain killers, so on. And then we get into joint replacement. And this obviously is the area where the orthopedic surgeon spends a lot of time. I spend a lot of time doing this. That's what a knee replacement looks like. There it is in the knee. And these are just x-rays taken afterwards. So when we come back to this group of people, they want a knee replacement when they can't play golf 3 times a week and tennis twice a week. Or they want a knee, traditionally 20 years ago, it would be, people would say, I can't walk to the shops, I can't do the little chores that I want to do during the day. Now people are at a much higher level, so they want to be functioning at that. So we do knee replacements for them to get them back. And we also do it at an older age. So, but if we look at this area, and this is what I'll just finish with, talking about the areas of research that we're doing. If we look at that small area of loss of articular cartilage, we see that in the younger sports person, that can frequently take them out of sports completely. So, because the damage can occur due to disease or due to sporting injury, it can't really regenerate, as Fergal was saying. So it can either lead to the requirement for joint replacement or an inability to participate in sports. And for these small little lesions here, we try different things. We drill into them to try and get them to heal in terms of forming scar tissue. Or we take little plugs of cartilage from other parts of the joint where there's not so much weight going through it, and we transfer it in here like little plugs called a mosaicplasty. Or we try and grow cartilage cells and put them here. All of these techniques have mixed results. So over the last few years, under the direction of Fergal O'Brien, the research has been done to develop bone substitutes. This has been very successful research, and in fact, this is an equine model with a huge bone defect in the jaw, which with the artificial bone substitute developed by Professor O'Brien has filled in very successfully. Received a lot of publicity at the time because a very good horse and a very unique way of treating it, and very successful. So having been successful like that, then we turned our attention to look at cartilage repair technology in order to try and cover in these little gaps of cartilage that are missing. So again, back to our sports person with this small lesion, who all these things are being tried on with moderate success. We now are trying this chondrocal, which is a plug of the bone substitute with a little bit of calcified cartilage and a little bit of cartilage substitute, made into kind of like a little dowel or a little cylinder. So what we'll do is we'll drill into the area where the cartilage is damaged, and then we'll plug in these little dowels of bone. So this has been done and very successfully on animal models, and we are now hoping to roll this out and try it in clinical trials on humans. And that is with Fergal, myself, and Cathal Moran. So to summarize, I just finished by showing you the research that we're doing, and all of this research, which is very, very elaborate, it all worked out at a very sort of elaborate bioengineering and biomolecular level, is all so that people can go out and run around and jump off things and play their games and be active and do all of those things. So in summary, I suppose the orthopedic surgeon sees all these things, and the message, I suppose, is that we would encourage you to go out and keep doing them as much as you can. And if you get into trouble, we'll try and do whatever we can to get you back doing them. Thank you.
I think the most fascinating for me was the cartilage generation, finding ways and forms of helping something that's, I mean, it's high impact sports and then degenerative wear and tear. I found that fascinating, but I love the aspect of different people giving their perspective on health as well. So it was a great combination to see it from these professional fields.
I enjoy the experience. I came out from SANI for today. I came out on the Lewis and stuff like here because I've been a student in the Royal College of Surgeons in one of their courses, Biomedical Sciences, and I really appreciate the quality that they present, and actually just the, to provide something for the public that they can ask professionals certain questions to answer what probably be on their head, because there's so much bro science, social media science, and it's good to hear from actually scientific people who are actually in the trenches learning every day and actually showing what is proven to see.